On today's episode of the Systems Kitchen, we're going to discuss tool selection. Tool selection is critical to what we do in the kitchen and what we do on the job. Today in the Systems Kitchen, I'd like to talk about tool selection. And you can see I have in front of me a range of knives that I find are useful for particular applications. And tool selection is not just important in the kitchen, it's critical on the job when we're picking a new engineering software or engineering tool. Now, each one of these knives has a different purpose. In fact, here we have 3 different chef's knives. These are great for slicing and chopping. And within this range of knives, I actually have different purposes for each one of these. You'll see that this one has a thick spine. This spine makes it easier to apply a lot of power as I'm slicing through something with maybe a thick root or slightly frozen meat when I have to cut through something like that. This next one has a much longer, wider rocker blade. It's also very thin, so this one is fantastic at cutting through herbs and salad fixings, things like that. This third one has a medium thick spine. It's also smaller, it's got a thinner profile, and it's very, very nimble. I get very precise cuts when I use this knife. This fourth knife is a pankiri. This is a bread knife. We see that it has a scalloped blade. It's very sharp. The scalloped blade makes it ideal for slicing through bread without damaging the bread or without creating too many crumbs as we slice through it. My santoku knife is great for extended chopping. I love to use this on fruits and vegetables, things like that. I'll even use it on meat occasionally. And this motion is very different. This is an up and down motion instead of the rocking motion that we get out of the chef's knife. So if I have to do a lot of extended chopping, I will reach for the santoku. I have a paring knife. This paring knife is fantastic for peeling fruits and vegetables and making fine cuts, or when I have to remove fat or sinew or something like that from a cut of meat. I have a utility knife. This utility knife is fantastic for coring strawberries and fruits, de-seeding things, and it's a generally very handy knife to have around. I have 2 steak knives. I have one with a smooth, very, very sharp edge that is ideal for slicing through certain types of cuts of meat. I have one that has a serrated edge. The serrated edge is better at tearing very, very tough cuts of meat. Now, the point behind this is that we always want to select the right tool for the job. I would never advocate using a knife to flip something or turn something in a skillet. I have a spatula for that. Just like I would not cut food with a spatula either. We want to pick the tool that is right for the job, and we want to use that tool for the job. It's very tempting as we acquire software tools to try to use them for everything, and we're always looking for that one solution that answers all of our problems. We're not going to find that. We need to make sure that we're using the tools for the purposes they're intended, use them well, and know when and how to deploy them. Now that we've selected our tools, it's really important to talk about interconnectivity and interoperability of those tools. I know a lot of organizations and engineers like to try to make all of their tools connect. Sometimes just for fun to see if we can, other times because we think there might be some additional utility in that. And perhaps. But let's take an example from the kitchen. I have a pair of tongs and I have my chef's knife. These two might be valuable to pair. For example, I've got a piece of hot pork loin or roast beef that I've pulled off the smoker, and I want to be able to cut through that and serve as I'm slicing. That makes sense. These two can work together. But I have a spaghetti scooper. Does this make sense to pair with this? Not necessarily, does it? I could force this to be used to hold the meat for me as I cut it, but it's not really the intended purpose of this tool. These two were never really intended to work together. So as we buy tools and as we look at the digital landscape we're creating in our organizations, it's very, very important for us to understand first what we're attempting to do before we try to find tools and make them work together. Always start with the purpose, and you'll be much more successful.